no bully boy would have picked a fight with him in the first place. But I'll give the patrons in that grimy little alehouse this much. They didn't hesitate but a second before the benches were flying and the fracas was afoot. I seized the propitious moment. "Out!" I hissed, grabbing the strangler's elbow. "There's no money to be made here."
"Money, money, that's all you ever think about," grumbled Greyboar. "What then of ethics and the meaning of life? Save it for later."
I pulled him toward the rear exit. Fortunately, the strangler was willing to leave. He's not the sort one drags from a tavern against his will, don't you know. On our way out, a beefy porker blocked the route, leering and twirling his club, but Greyboar removed his face, and that was that. Finger work, he calls it. Once in the back alley, Greyboar returned to the matter, like a dog chewing a bone.
"Yet there must be a logic to it all," he complained. "Surely there's more to life than this aimless collision of bodies in space."
His thick brows nodded over his eyes.
"Wine, women, and song," I retorted. "There's sufficient purpose for a strangler and his agent, and it all takes money, my man, which you can't get rousting bravos in alehouses."
That last bit was unfair. It had been my idea to go into the alehouse to celebrate the completion of a nice little job with a pot or two. Bad idea, of course. The job had taken us to a grimy little suburb of the city where we'd never been before. And there's something about Greyboar, his size maybe, or just an aura of implacable certainty, that inevitably seems to arouse the local strongman to belligerence. As the wise man says, big frogs in little ponds are prone to suicide. But it was just so exasperating.
"Still and all,"
continued Greyboar, like a glacier on its course,
"I'm convinced there's more to it. Wine, women, and song, you say, and that's fine for you. You're a Sybarite of the Epicurean persuasion. But I, it is clear to me, incline rather to the Stoic, perhaps even the ascetic."
"You're driving me mad with this philosophical foolishness," I exclaimed. "And will you please curl up your hands?"
"Sorry."
He has long arms, Greyboar. It's an asset in his line of work. But the sound of fingernails clattering along the cobblestones gets on my nerves. By now, we had reached the end of the alley and were on to a main street. I looked around and spotted a hansom not far away. I whistled, and it was but a minute later that we clambered aboard. It was an extravagance, to be sure, but we were flush with cash, and I'd no desire to walk all the way back to the city.
"Take us to the side of the trough," I told the driver. "It's in the flanking, right off." "I know where it is," grumbled the cabby. "It'll cost you extra, you know."
I sighed, but didn't argue the point. Cabbies always charged extra for going into the thieves' quarter. Can't say as I blamed them. It was one of the disadvantages of living in the flanken, but the advantages made it worth the while. Hardly any porkers to bother you, hidey-holes galore, a friendly neighborhood, certainly no pestersome bully boys, a vast network of information, customers always knew where to find you, etc. As the hansom made its way back into New Sphincter, Greyboar continued to drone on about philosophy's central place in human existence. I struggled manfully to control my temper, but at one point I couldn't resist taking a dig.
"You're only doing this philosophy nonsense because of Gwendolen," I grumbled.
Of course, that made him furious. This is not, by the way, a stunt I recommend for the amateur. Infuriating Greyboar, that is. But I'm the world's expert on the subject, and I know exactly when I can get away with it. His jaws clamped shut, his face turned red. He bestowed a ferocious glare on me.
"What's my sister got to do with it?"
he demanded. I glared right back at him. "It's obvious. You never gave a second thought. You never gave a first thought to this philosophy crap until Gwendolen said you had the philosophy of a weasel." He looked away from me, his face like a stone. I felt bad then. He was such a formidable monster that I forgot sometimes he had feelings just like other people, and before their fight, he and his sister had been very close. Still, it shut him.